Hey, Ray, you might want to get your mic ready. You may want to defend yourself on this next question. Troy, we got another question that came in during the week. I love these coming in during the week. We try and get to them. And I was telling Ray about it, and I said, ooh, we got a question about the S&P 500. He thought it was a gun.
The S&P 500 is a gun?
He says, what gun is that?
To be fair, I didn't hear you say S&P. I thought you said M&P, and I was like,
well, that makes more sense.
He's sharing half of the story.
Story. There you go. That's part of the story there.
That was an account that actually happened, though. And it included the character Ray. But that's why I said you may want to put your mic on. All right. The question comes in, if a person invests money in an S&P 500 mutual fund. Now, do you know what an S&P 500 mutual fund is, Troy?
I have an inkling of an idea, but
I bet Jeff does.
It stands for stock performance. I believe the S&P has to do with that. I only know that because I looked it up right when you were talking about it.
It's normally a mutual fund that's dealing with the top 500 performing,
right,
or something to that effect. I'm not an investor, but anyway, like that. I don't know all that stuff. But anyway, if he invests in a S&P 500 mutual fund, he's investing money in all the companies represented there. I do know that to be the case. Mm-hmm. All right. Some of those companies are clearly involved in immoral activities like pornography, promoting drunkenness, abortion providers, etc. So is it sinful to invest in funds that hold stock in these companies?
Wow. What a question.
Oh, you know it. That's what you say when you want me to carry it on, right?
That's right. It's exactly what that means. You're picking up what I'm putting down there.
All right. I'm going to start with this. And Jeff, do me a favor, because this is the second time I'm referencing it. And I'm thinking about the idea of if it violates your conscience.
I was just going looking that up too.
Because that's the first thing I want to go to. If you are, and let's put this aside, because we talked about the boycotting issue one night on this program. If it bothers you, and actually my wife commented on here, ooh, thank you, Jack Davis. I'm trying to read all these comments here. Standard and Poor's is what it stands for.
Okay.
So thank you, Jack. But my wife says when you purchase something, you technically invest. We talked about that. Like, let's say you go to a store that happens to sell alcohol too, or a restaurant that serves alcohol. Are you investing in them? Is that sinful? Is that wrong? Do you have to boycott certain things? You know, we have a choice of what we choose to participate in, and that's really the eating of meats. And the problem they had with the eating of meats was that here was meat that was offered to idols. And pretty much you could buy that meat. And from the history and, studying that, it was a good bargain. that you could buy this meat offered to idols, and you could eat it. Now, is there anything true of an idol? No, those are false gods. Was this meat holy at this point? No. Was it unholy at this point? No. What was it? It was meat. That's simply it. It was meat. And so, but some Christians had a problem with whether or not you could eat of it, because are you supporting that false religion?
Yeah, because it carried a certain connotation with it. When people saw that particular, I think of it this way. You know how you bring home something from the supermarket and it has the wrapping on it? Mm-hmm. And when you see that wrapping, like, for example, Winn-Dixie is known for their beef, and you got the good stuff, or pick one, whatever it is.
The Publix meat.
Well, what's the one that you buy that everybody talks about? Omaha beef or something like that.
Omaha steak.
I can't afford that.
Well, anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I've heard of them.
So that's the way I look at it. People bring it home and it's got that stamp on it. This came from the idol of Diana.
Yeah.
And people are seeing that, and then that's where the objection comes from.
And what we're talking about actually comes from.
What's that? About the conscience?
Yeah, well, the eating of meats is from
Romans 14, isn't it?
Romans 1 Corinthians 8 deals with that as well, where Paul said, we know that an idol is nothing, and he's talking about those of a Jewish background.
Thank you.
Those in idolatry who came out of that still associated that with their past life to some degree.
So we got really Romans 8, and we also got 1 Corinthians 4. was it 14?
Right.
Well, and also Romans 14, talking about one who is weak in the
First
faith.
Corinthians 8, Romans 14. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
And so, what we're dealing with here then is the idea of, he actually says, look, it's not sinful, but look, if it bothers your conscience, don't do it. And if it hurts somebody else, I'm not going to do it.
There's the other half of it, right?
And so we got to realize we got to be careful that we don't start imposing things that God hasn't imposed upon us. If we get to the point that, well, if that man happens to be a drunkard down the road that owns the mechanic shop, if I actually give him business and he uses that money in order to go buy more alcohol, now am I contributing?
Right.
You almost get to an impossibility.
Right.
But if it violates your conscience, the answer to this question, I could clearly tell you, don't do it. Don't invest.
Or
if you
causes somebody else to stumble.
And,
Right.
Yeah.
and I think there are some situations that you might be able to choose what you invest in, whatever, and
Going back
get
to
one not involved in that sort of stuff. But there's a passage in Matthew 22, verse 21, and Jesus took that coin that Peter had taken out of the fish's mouth, and he said, "Render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God." Now, we have to pay taxes, but we don't necessarily agree with the Congress or as to where that tax money goes. And some of it goes to things we would find.
I think there's a
immoral as
difference
well.
that if you sat
Yeah,
in a board meeting and you had a vote and you could decide how the money is used and you
Right.
decide to continue to support that business and vote and have a say in immoral activity.
Right.
But investing in the S&P 500, you're not having any say. You truly are even not enabling at that point. Maybe some people would argue that you do. And if you do, don't do it. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. It's like once you investigate it and you see something there that you don't approve of, then don't do it. I mean, that's what I do. I don't go or frequent certain places simply because I know of the stances that they take, and that's my choice. But I do not. Here's another thing to that. I do not bind that upon somebody else.
And that's the key. We need to respect some liberties because we're getting into matters of judgment.
Amen.
And certainly we could go to passages like not bidding Godspeed, but even bidding Godspeed was dealing with one that was actually a false teacher. That's a little different context. And I will tell you, my conscience is that I would not support certain businesses.
Right.
And
that's
I know.
what I do.
I mean, I'm just not going to do it. But then sometimes I find myself that I don't have a choice. If I want to have internet at the house, I have to have AT&T. I don't like AT&T. I'm going to tell you right here. You heard it first. No, you didn't hear it first. You probably already know it. They're big proponents of homosexuality. And in doing so, I don't appreciate it. And I would love to say, well, I won't ever use them. Well, that's fine, but I won't be able to have internet at my house if I don't. And so what do? I buy the internet. Now, I'm not going and saying, oh, you have this association with this. Let me support your extra program. I'm not doing that. And so, but I try to draw distinctions where I can, and I use that personal judgment. I have somebody that still emails me because I got a Nike emblem right there.
Shame on you.
I know. I didn't buy this because it was Nike. I bought it because it was on sale. And I don't really support them and their stance. I don't wear Nike shoes, but I don't. It's judgment.
That's right. Comes back to personal judgment every time.
Exactly.
And you said it at the beginning. If it violates your conscience, don't do it. If it causes somebody else to stumble, don't do it.
There you go. There you go.